Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Mike Wade. Thank you for tuning in to Dissect and Connect, a podcast where we explore population health issues impacting your community. This podcast is a service of Montgomery County Prevention Partners and New River Valley Community Services. Our podcast is made possible by a grant from Carilion Clinic. The views expressed in this program may not reflect those of Carilion Clinic. Lauren Sisler is a native of Giles County and a graduate of Giles High School. She also happens to be a multinational award-winning sports broadcaster for ESPN and AL.com. But Lauren's journey has not always been full of victories and celebrations. In 2003, as a freshman at Rutgers University, tragedy struck Lauren's world when she unexpectedly lost both of her parents on the same day due to their concealed battle with addiction. Through her grief and despair, Lauren found the courage to continue moving forward and to find peace. Lauren now travels across the country to share her story. Her hope is to spread awareness about the dangers and impact of addiction, to inspire others to overcome life's obstacles, and to encourage people to live their best life, no matter what might come their way. So Lauren, welcome to the Dissect and Connect podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me. It's really an honor to get this opportunity to sit down and chat with you guys and be a guest on the show.
And I'm a little disappointed because we were supposed to be together in person earlier this week. You were supposed to come back to Giles County and hang out with us the other day, but like everything else, we've had to change those plans because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I know that we'll get that back on the calendar at some point in the future.
I know, and I cannot wait. It's been really difficult navigating these waters, obviously going through this time where we're supposed to be out and about. I'm supposed to be covering spring football. I'm about to get married May 30th, and now all of a sudden all the plans have just been interrupted. But I'd like to say that we've just hit the pause button for right now. We haven't hit the delete button. We've just hit the pause button. So we're going to pick up where we left off, right?
That's a great way to put it. So since we're talking about that, how have you been impacted personally by the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a difficult last couple of months, certainly from a personal standpoint as well as professionally. And so, kind of when we got the news that things were starting to shut down, and of course that spring football was iffy, and they kind of kept pushing it and saying, okay, we're going to delay it, and kept thinking, okay, well maybe we'll get lucky and still have a couple of these spring football games. And I was on the schedule to do Duke spring game as well as LSU and Auburn. And it was kind of like one by one, and you get closer and closer and closer, and they decided there's just no way that we can practice and get out here and be together in a locker room with this pandemic going on. And so, of course, they had to decide to cancel that. So, that was probably the toughest part for me, is having to, kind of wait that out and just anxiously wait for, football. Because here's the thing, football is 365 days a year, especially in the South. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, we've taken a couple months off since the national championship, and you get sort of fired up, and it's an opportunity to kind of, see the new class, the new team, and whatnot. So certainly disappointing. And then, of course, I've had a lot of these speaking events that you speak of. I'm, being able to come back home to my hometown of Giles County. I was really, really, really excited about that, and just getting to reconnect with people that I haven't talked to in a long time. Cora Ratcliffe being one of them, and
yep.
Your colleagues over there, and it's just so tough because it's something I look forward to. I get to cover college football. I get to go out and be on the sidelines, but it is so much fun to also be out in the community and being out to provide outreach, and obviously just get to connect with people on various levels. And so all of that being canceled made it, difficult. And, having this opportunity, obviously, to talk to you guys gets me excited and giddy, because I feel like there's a little level of normalcy here, right? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, the other, obviously, big plans that I mentioned before, the May 30th wedding, unfortunately, have been interrupted. We were actually set to get married at Mountain Lake. My future husband, John Willard, who's from Christiansburg, Virginia. And we were so excited about it. We've been planning this wedding for a year and a half, and I hate to say it, but I've made the poor man wait long enough. So we've been engaged for a year and a half, and I finally said, okay, John, we were talking about it. We're going to postpone. What are we going to do? And we finally decided, you know what? We waited long enough. We're still going to get married May 30th. We just decided we're going to do that in a private ceremony in Birmingham, Alabama, because we don't know, of course, what the regulations and the guidelines will be at that time.
Sure.
We're just going to do a private ceremony and then, kind of hit the reset button, and we'll do it all over again next year at Mountain Lake, just as we had planned before. And so it might look and feel a little different, but honestly, I think that through all of this, it's going to make us stronger and hopefully more resilient. And hopefully we'll never have to go through something like this again in our lifetime. We'll cross our fingers.
I was going to say, it's going to be something you'll always remember.
It will be. Everybody keeps saying, oh, these are going to be the stories for your kids and your grandkids. And I'm just like, oh, hopefully I don't have to relive this again. But it certainly will be. And it's just crazy to think, everything, just the uncertainty, everything really just sort of spiraled downwards very quickly and not understanding and being able to grasp the concept of what we were in for. And now we really just have to kind of sit it out and wait and have patience to see where we come out on the other end of this thing.
Well, this isn't the first time that you've faced adversity, obviously. I touched upon your story briefly in the introduction for today's episode, but I was hoping that maybe you could take a few minutes just to share a little bit more about your story and kind of why you do what you do these days.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly been a journey, and to your point, there's been a lot of challenges in life, and I think we're all faced with challenges and different challenges that we have to kind of sustain and go through. And for me, what happened to me and my family, I guess it'd be about 17 years ago, definitely was devastating. It was heartbreaking, and really, my goal is to use my story and sort of what my family has endured to try to help other people, because for so long I lived in silence and was so ashamed of my story that it was something I felt very drawn to and called to be able to share my story publicly with other people. And so, back when I was, of course, went to Giles High School and was a gymnast my entire life. I trained at Roanoke Academy of Gymnastics in Roanoke, Virginia, where I, spent most of my childhood before coming to Giles County. And, just kind of drawing that picture for you. We were a close family. It was me and my mom and my dad, Leslie and George Sisler. He went by Butch. And, I'm sure some of those listening to the podcast might remember their names well and fondly, and then my older brother, Alan Sisler. And like I said, we were a close-knit family, always on the go, running around, just constantly, from one sporting event to the other, to the other, to the other. And really, we had, what I would consider, sort of that close-knit, tight, American, traditional, middle-class family, and we had that close bond. And, I honestly felt very blessed to have the relationship that I had with my parents throughout, elementary school and junior high and high school. And so, as I'm continuing my gymnastics career, I realized that I wanted to be a collegiate gymnast. That became a goal of mine and something that I was, very invested in for many years. And so I was commuting to and from Giles High School down to Roanoke over an hour each way, every day for practice. So 4 or 5 days a week, I was making that commute, putting in a lot of hours. It was like having another job.
Yeah.
So that on top of the schoolwork and the dedication and devotion, and not to mention the financial impact that it had on the family's wallet. Gymnastics is not a cheap sport. So those of you parents out there listening that are contemplating gymnastics, it's a fun sport, I'll tell you, but it's definitely not easy on the pocketbook. But through all that dedication and time and energy and money that was spent on the sport, I felt like if I could get a college scholarship, this is something that my parents devoted so much time to. I could be repaying them by helping to pay for my education. And it's just something I thought would be so wonderful to join a gymnastics team and to continue the next 4 years of my career. And so Rutgers University was never on my radar, and my gymnastics coach here in Roanoke kind of put the bug in my ear and said, hey, maybe you should look into Rutgers. And so they took an interest in me. They offered me to come for an official visit. And, come on. You think about this, like Giles County, this old girl from Giles County. Hey, and don't get me wrong, I'm proud of my roots. I will tell you, when I stepped foot on campus there at Rutgers, all these Jersey girls, they're like, where are you from? And I had a little country twang.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was welcomed with open arms. And honestly, they loved it. They loved having a girl from the South on their team. And they always used to joke with me. They'd be like, man, you're slow. Like, you walk slow, you drive slow. And I said, that's funny that you say I drive slow. You might want to check my driving record on that one. You won't tell anybody, right? But anyways, it was a place that I felt like I could call home. And so, I felt like I really had that close-knit network with my coaches and my teammates. And, it was a place that I felt comfortable. And my parents, I think, felt the same way and knew that when I went off to college that I was going to be in good hands. Right. So, I went to college, obviously, at Rutgers. And, first semester was certainly an adjustment, having to, get used to the 18 course credits and the gymnastics and the demands that come with, college courses and all the travel and everything else. But, I was settling in well. And then, you fast forward to my second semester, and that's when things kind of took a turn. And, I picked up the phone like I did every night, called my parents. We always had those close conversations, always talking about school and gymnastics and life. And so I had that conversation with them just like I always did. And, nothing seemed off that night. It was March 22nd when I picked up the phone and called them, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. And I'm sorry, it's March 23rd. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary when I was talking to them. And, we hung up the phone, said, I love you. And, I said my prayers and went to bed, and that was it. And I woke up to a phone call just after 3:00 in the morning. I look at the clock, and of course, my heart kind of starts racing because I knew, this can't be good. Somebody's calling me in the middle of the night, and I look at the caller ID and it says home. And, I answered the phone with some hesitation, and my dad was on the other line, and he said, Lauren, I need to talk to your brother. And I said, Dad, what's wrong? And he said, Lauren, I just need to talk to your brother. And, you could hear it in his voice. You could hear the kind of the pain. And he said, Lauren, your mom died. And, those words, of course, hit me so strongly. And I just couldn't believe I was hearing those words. And he said, I just need you to get on the next plane you can, and I'll be at the airport to pick you up. So, of course, at that point, I get to the airport, and, I'm trying to get in touch with him on the phone. I, haven't been able to really reach him. And I'm like, I'm going to see him soon. Of course, I run outside, and I'm waiting for him to come pick me up at curbside, and never did see him. And instead, it was my uncle and my cousin Justin who came to pick me up. And soon after, found out that my dad too had passed away. And it was the news that you just never expect to hear. As I say, a little girl, because I think there was that little girl inside me. I was 18 years old, but really I was still trying to learn how to navigate life. There were a lot of things I didn't know how to do, and it was tough. It was a tough circumstance that happened, and it's just something I never expected to happen. And I think you just live your life, and you have this vision of what you think life is supposed to be and how you're supposed to live out your life, and you expect to have the closest people that you love the most there right beside you through all of it. And I really felt like that got cut short so quickly. And of course, it would be months and months before we would actually learn what took both of my parents' lives.
I mean, I just can't even imagine to lose not just one parent, but both parents, and within 24 hours of each other. I mean, I can't imagine, especially as you said, you're 18 years old, how that must have impacted you. But somehow, some way, you've been able to work through all of that and go on to have a very successful professional career. Your personal life is going well. And I think, if you think about the potential trajectory for you, given that circumstance, things could have gone in a completely different direction, right?
Yep.
So how have you been able to navigate and get through this to be where you are today?
Well, I think a big part of it is time, a lot of healing. The grieving process is different for everyone, and I think everyone handles their challenges and grief and loss and trauma in their life in different ways. And I think for me, a lot of the therapy came from acknowledging what happened with my parents. As I said, it took a few months for us to learn that both of my parents, how they had died, and we later learned it was from prescription drug overdoses. Mm-hmm. And, I knew both of my parents were seeing a pain management doctor. I knew that they were in pain and trying to cope with that chronic pain, but I really didn't understand the severity of it or the magnitude of it. And of course, I didn't understand what prescription drugs, the effect that they can have on people and the addictive nature of them. And so, I think to some degree, your parents are your heroes. They're the ones that are your strength, your rock, everything. And so, you never expect to see your parents break down and be able to not be able to get through everyday life. And, my parents were the two people that woke up every day with a smile on their faces.
Yeah.
So it was so hard for me to see them in the pain they were in, but they always did such a good job of kind of concealing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where they really concealed their battle with addiction, is because they didn't want people to know that they were battling this thing. And I think that's sort of where I've found that resilience and that strength to kind of move forward, is because, they went through such a difficult time in their lives, and obviously really had to conceal that battle because they, I think, were ashamed of it and ashamed of the stigma that comes with addiction. But what I realized is that either I can follow in that same path and conceal their battle with addiction and perhaps go down that same path myself to try and cope with it, or I can take a different road and use their story to try to help other people. Because I think it's so important that we're transparent and we're vulnerable, because we're able to learn so much more by other people's stories and challenges and what they're going through. And I think the more transparent we can be, the better off we're going to be in the end. Because I think what happens is we try to close ourselves off because we're afraid of that judgment. I was so afraid of judgment for my parents and what people were going to think. And, especially in my hometown, look, let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
Giles County, everybody knows everything, right?
Absolutely.
When something happens, your neighbor's always going to be checking in on you, and people are always going to know what's going on. And I think for me, it was just trying to hide that for so long because I didn't want their legacy to be destroyed by how they died. But, truth be told, my aunt and uncle, my Uncle Mike, and my Aunt Linda, call her my Auntie Linda, I would say had a big hand in sort of helping me to break down the walls that I had built up for so many years. I'd spent years, I'd go back to Rutgers and obviously living out my life. And it was almost like I was separating like reality from truth.
Right.
And so I was putting up these brick walls trying to hide from what had really happened. And, my Auntie Linda just said, she said, Lauren, like, you can't change the opinions of others. You can't influence how people are going to think of you or your family. And, you certainly can't change how your parents died, but don't allow how they died to define how they lived. And I think that was such a big piece for me.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, it took time.
Yeah.
It took years of her really trying to break that down. We kind of joke about it now, but we used to just get into these big old arguments because I just didn't want to accept the truth. I didn't want to accept the truth of what happened. I wouldn't read the toxicology reports. She came out with those reports 90 days after they had passed away, and I refused to look in that envelope. And it would be 10 years before I actually ever opened up that envelope and looked inside to see what those toxicology reports said.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Well, I have to say your aunt did give you some really sage advice.
She really did.
Yeah.
It has really been a huge blessing to me because, her and I are very close. She's my mom's sister.
Right.
And, her personality is a lot like my mom's. And, we share a lot of great things together. And it's kind of cool because, the auntie's sort of the mom, the sister, the auntie, the best friend all rolled into one. And so we have a great relationship. And it's just been a lot of fun to kind of grow in that side of things. And, I mentioned to you, I was 18 years old. So I didn't need a legal guardian, but keep in mind, like, I didn't even know how to write a check.
Yeah.
So I was very naive to the world and to the responsibilities of being an adult. And so I really leaned on my aunt and uncle to kind of help me navigate those waters because I was far from being ready to enter into adulthood and to do this thing called life on my own.
Right. Well, and I think the fact that you had some positive adults in your life to help guide you and support you is so key, in that there's a lot of research that shows that having that type of person in your life can really change the trajectory of your life and make things better long term. So it's great that you
Absolutely.
had that as a support. I wonder if maybe you could go back and talk a little bit more about just the value that you find from your upbringing in a small community, in a small area like Giles County, and how maybe you've used that to kind of build from in your career and your personal life.
Yeah, it's been amazing to sort of see how my connection and my roots in Giles County have sort of molded me into who I am today. And, I grew up obviously in Roanoke, Virginia, and I spent the first 12 years of my life in Roanoke. And, we lived in kind of a suburban neighborhood, and my parents had always wanted to build that dream home. And so they had acquired some land from my great uncle, and that's sort of what ended us back up in Giles. My grandma, my dad's mom, had land up there. She lived up there, split time between Roanoke and Newport. And so it was just always something my parents wanted to do. And so they had this opportunity to build this home. And that was sort of where they took things. And, I like to share this story, and it's kind of a humbling experience for me. And you don't realize it when you're in it, but then you look back and you're like, wow, like that really molded me and changed me and sort of helped my perspective. So when we made the transition, we sold our house here in Roanoke, and obviously we're building the house in Giles, and had to live in a temporary mobile home. And, in my mind, like my room was teeny tiny. And I'm thinking, I go from having like a somewhat normal sized bedroom to like no closet, like living on top of myself, and we're living on top of each other. And remember spending our first Thanksgiving and Christmas there. But don't get me wrong, I had my trampoline there in the backyard. That was the number one thing. That had to come with me. That wasn't going to the wayside. But, at the time it was like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy. But looking back on it, I honestly tell you that, and I'm learning this too in this world that we're living in this pandemic that we're facing, sometimes less is more. And sometimes when you have this opportunity to live in such a way where you're kind of being challenged to live a little bit more simply, or, to not have all the things maybe that you're used to. And don't get me wrong, my parents spoiled us, but like, we also were told no plenty of times, like, no, you're not going to have that dream car that you want. No, you're not going to have all those things. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think that. But, with that being said, being able to live in that sort of time frame, it was about a year. It was my first year at Giles High School. And it really, looking back on it, it really sort of, I guess, helped my family transition, obviously, kind of from one chapter to another. Right. We were living in Roanoke, obviously transitioned and got to move into, the home that my parents had built. But for that year, it was a challenge, obviously, living under the sort of those smaller parameters, and then having to still commute to and from work. Dad, still worked in Salem, Virginia. So with that being said, I think that my roots and sort of what I learned in transitioning from my time in Roanoke to Giles County, and really just almost appreciating things more. Taking a further appreciation for life in general, and really for family, because it sort of forced us to kind of live on top of each other. And, it wasn't like we were having friends over all the time and being able to kind of branch out. And I felt like it really bonded our family closer together. And looking back on it, those were some of the best memories that I have with my parents. And I'm really, really, really thankful for that. And one of those things where, sometimes you feel like you've got to have, the best car and the best house and all these awesome things. But at the end of the day, it's the people that you're surrounded by. And that's what I love so much about my roots in Giles County, is because, and I tell this to people, a lot of my friends from Roanoke would come visit me at Giles because they used to love spending time with all my friends and stuff in Giles County. And we were just such a close-knit group. And that's what I always tell people that I loved about, kind of the culture in Giles County is just different than some of your, more suburban type school systems. I just felt like everyone was very tight and close-knit. You have a graduating class of, just over 100, and we're all friends and we're all in this together. And I just felt like, what a joy it was to walk in Giles High School every day and know everyone's name and see a smile on everyone's face, and just felt like you're a part of something and you're connected to everybody in some way. And, it doesn't matter if you run track, you play baseball, or you're on the cheerleading team. Everyone's kind of, on equal playing field. And that's one thing I just really love about, Giles County. And I definitely take some time to brag on them quite a bit.
Well, having a supportive community is incredibly important, especially for young people, I think. So
absolutely.
So how do you these days maintain your wellness and ensure that you're staying healthy?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's one of those things, just sort of being in this time where we're definitely up against something that, I guess there's no blueprint or manual for how to handle what it is we're going through, and of course we're all sitting here wondering how we're going to keep our jobs and keep food on the table and all those things. But, I think that the biggest thing that I've learned in this process is that we can control what we can control, right? And so the best thing that we can do is to, try to eliminate some of that, maybe I guess I say the outside distractions and the things of wanting to change. And especially, as it pertains to the wedding, that was a big part for me. It's like, I was so devastated, and it's like, I don't want to change the wedding date. I want to hold on as long as I can. And then I realized, like, this isn't going to change and I can't control what's happening. So let's go ahead and come up with a plan B. And, I almost feel like plan B has become even more special than plan A. As crazy as that sounds, as you start to realize that you just have to adjust. And I think that's how I've learned how to adjust in life. And I guess that's really what maybe this tragedy and sort of what I've been dealt in life has helped me to learn how to adjust, even if it's just the littlest of a bit when you have controversy or you have a challenge. Okay, how do we pivot and how do we take this thing head on and find a better way to overcome it, right? How do we continue to move forward? And I think that's sort of where I'm at now, just adjusting to that lifestyle and knowing, we're obviously up against a very challenging time. The foreseeable future looks nothing like any of us thought it would, but being able to kind of sit here and, realize this is time to spend with family, time to maybe reevaluate where we are in life, because I think that sometimes life sort of gets in the way of, gets in our own way sometimes.
Right.
We get in our own way because you get into this routine where you continue doing the same things. It almost becomes like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over and over again. Well, guess what? Now we're forced into Groundhog Day and
Absolutely.
we're just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But I think this is a great time for us to all to kind of sit back and evaluate ourselves and sort of see where we're at in life and maybe, set some new goals, and say, okay, when this thing lifts, when this pandemic is over, when we've started to emerge from this pandemic, what can I do, to find my purpose in life? Yeah. And so I think that people are finding purpose right now and helping others and being a voice and a shoulder to lean on. And you just see so many people coming together to be such a big part of the community and helping people that are in need during this time and that truly need it. And I think that, I always say if you can find a purpose in life, you find meaning in that. And I think that's probably what helps me to stay sane and really helps me to feel this presence, I guess, in this lifetime, that I'm able to take something tragic and take something that has impacted my life so greatly and do something positive with it. And I think that's really what's kind of helped me to stay afloat and really to continue to thrive and to ultimately feel like I have that purpose in life, because I think that's where some of the greatest rewards come in life, is having that purpose. And, I tell people this a lot as a sports reporter. You have this opportunity to go out and you get to, interview some of the top coaches and athletes in the entire world, right? Some of the most prolific figures. And getting into TV, it was sort of like, for me, like, oh, cool, I get to be on TV. Like, that's really awesome, right? But truth be told, like, getting into TV, that was the thought process. But now looking back on it, even that has evolved for me, because now I realize that maybe what I do is with purpose. Maybe as a sports reporter, I've got a greater purpose than just going out and doing interviews and talking about sports. Mm-hmm. I get to share stories. I get to share stories that I truly believe can have an impact on other people's lives. And that was once blurred because of my inability to share my own story.
Right.
So I'm being trusted to talk about other people's stories, but I can't even share my own. So I think that that's what I encourage people, especially during this time, is like, you've got this opportunity to really like evaluate where you are. Start setting goals, thinking about things you want to do when all of this passes, and think about some of the things you've learned in this process, things that you once had that now maybe you don't, things that maybe you can live without, things that maybe you became obsessed with, or we're all drawn to something. And I know the word addicted kind of sounds harsh, but I guess in a lot of ways we're all drawn to things in life. We all obsess over certain things. We all, have our vices, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so this is an opportunity to see what we've been able to learn to live without, and maybe use this as time to evaluate those things and figure out, the best mode of transit moving forward, and how can we, be better citizens for it and, live a life with purpose.
You just dropped some really amazing nuggets of knowledge there. So, so thank you for that.
I hope so.
Yeah. I'm just curious to learn if you'd be willing to share any tips or tricks from your tool bag for just personal fitness, health, diet, exercise. What are some things that you do normally to maintain your wellness?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, as you know, so getting married May 30th. I'm still, I call this the hashtag shredding for the wedding.
I like it.
That's what I call this, my shredding for the wedding. So now it's still shredding for the wedding because it's been funny, through this time having to get takeout and not being able to kind of be as healthy as I would like to be. John, my fiance, kind of jokes with me. He says, "Okay, so I guess the shredding for the wedding's out the window." And I said, when I start getting into ordering my fried pickles and my nachos, look, I like some junk food. Let me tell you,
who doesn't, right?
Who doesn't? I mean, come on. It's been funny, being back here in Roanoke. I have several restaurants that are like my favorites. Places that I love to go to, and I love some Japanese food. I love McAdoo's, love going to McAdoo's. That's like one of my favorite restaurants. It's just funny, kind of picking up the old habits.
Yeah.
But I really have tried to maintain that overall good health and wellness and that balance. And, I had somebody, my good friend Amanda in Birmingham has really helped me to kind of stay the course. She's sort of been my nutrition coach as well as my trainer, Lewis, at the gym. And, we haven't been able to work out, obviously, at the gym, but he's been giving us workouts. So that's been great. I've got a couple dumbbells and a kettlebell and some, TRX bands and stuff like that have really helped me to kind of stay the course. And then, my auntie and I have been walking up the hill. She lives here on the side of a mountain. So it's been good to get the exercise. So I think staying motivated and obviously continuing to always move has been very important. So, I think early on, I got to be honest, I was pretty down about this wedding thing and I was very sulky about it and just and I found myself kind of sulking around and laying around entirely too much and kind of just saying, well, what else is there to do?
Right.
But then I realized this is not benefiting me at all.
Yeah. And
so now it's like I'm picking back up. I'm trying to stay motivated, keep moving, working on projects around the house. All the things that you put off probably for years and years and years. Now is the perfect time to get them done, like those home projects, the scrapbooking, sitting down doing a puzzle with the family, whatever it may be. I think that just having the opportunity. I know a lot of people want to binge watch Netflix and all these movies right now and these shows. I encourage a couple shows here and there, sprinkle them into your everyday routine, no problem with that. But I think now is the time to make a list of some projects that you want to get done, things that you've had on your to-do list for years and years, and saying, how am I going to get these done? And that's sort of what I've done. I've been going through some photos and scanning pictures and doing some things that I haven't gotten to do for a long time. And, between that and just trying to eat healthy and maintain, stay away from all the snacks that are sitting over there on the counter right now, doing my best not to go too crazy, but try to find your new normal. And I think that if you can find that new normal and get up and have a routine, instead of sleeping in every day, don't get me wrong, I sleep in every once in a while, but, kind of having a routine to where you feel like you're accomplishing something every single day, I think is so important.
Yeah. You have to feel like you have a purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So what about the future, Lauren? I mean, what's the future look like for you?
I don't know. Well, like I said, so May 30th, I get to become the new Mrs. Willard. So I'm excited about that.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We had a honeymoon planned. So we're working on a new plan because obviously a cruise to the Mediterranean is not going to work out for us right now. So we'll save that for an anniversary trip at some point. But for now, working on, kind of a honeymoon trip. So that'll sort of be our getaway, and then we'll get to kind of hit the reset button. But, for me, I think the future is just kind of sitting and waiting. I know there's a lot of speculation. Is football season going to happen?
Right, yep.
I'm optimistic and hopeful. I think that things will turn out for the positive. I think things are going to, start to hit an upward trajectory. And I realize that there's some concerns about, flu season coming around and another wave of this and whatnot. But I do think that, it doesn't do us any good to sit here and try to predict everything. I'm not an expert, but I do have optimism and hope that there will be a football season. Maybe it looks a little different. I don't know.
Right.
But, we just kind of got to sit tight and be patient and hope that everything works out. And obviously the most important thing is that everyone stays healthy and that we're able to kind of get through this. So, my future is hopefully covering the 2020 football season when it rolls around in September, for ESPN as well as AL.com, so obviously having the opportunity to kind of, work for both entities, getting to travel around, has been a lot of fun. And that's one thing I tell people that was a lot of fun this past season. So I've kind of been nested in the SEC footprint for quite a few years. And this past year with ESPN, I was able to travel all over the country.
Right.
I got to cover some games in various conferences. Surprisingly, I didn't cover any ACC games. I don't know what's up with that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It hurts like a dagger. But, it was a lot of fun to kind of get to travel around and see different parts of the country and, of course, get to meet different coaches. And I always tell people this. It's pretty cool because every conference sort of has its own personality. And so, I know that it's always a war, this conference is better than this and we're better than you and whatever. But really what's cool about it is every conference has its own personality, and then every team, I feel like, has its own personality. And so it's really a lot of fun to kind of see, just meet different people and the players and the coaches and, really the kind of the driving force behind college football with the fans and just the pageantry and everything. And so I'd say that when we do resume to normal, that's something I'm going to really be looking forward to because, for me, that does seem normal, kind of getting to be around that. So, hopefully that's what the fall holds and has in store. And then, of course, just getting to continue on the speaking circuit and getting to share, my story and just things that I've learned. And it's just amazing how I think our stories always evolve, like how we as people are always evolving. And, I point to this, like you have this identity, and I think we all kind of have this identity that we're sort of enclosed in right now. But our identity and who we are continues to evolve. And so I think especially you talk about like, our younger generation and those that are trying to navigate, getting through high school and college and what they want to do with their careers. I think people feel like they've got to have the answers right now.
Yeah.
They got to know what they want to do right this minute. What am I going to do? And I always tell people like, if you've got it all figured out, then my goodness, like
good for
A++,
you.
because like, come on, let's be real here.
Yeah.
But, it takes time and it always evolves. And the thing is, what you want to do now is not going to be the same thing you want to do 10 years from now. And those things are always going to change. I wanted to be a sports doctor. And what am I doing right now? I'm certainly not doing surgery or working on anybody's, broken ankles.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, because I'm too squeamish for that stuff nowadays, as I've realized as I've gotten older. But, I think I just, it's amazing how this opportunity almost gives us a chance to really, like I said, reevaluate ourselves. And you almost have this opportunity to kind of see your progress chart and where you are in life and then where you want to be. And so, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, this is a time for me to really evaluate where I'm at, and what sort of the next few years look like. And, obviously first comes marriage and then, Lord willing, children will be in the future and kind of mapping all that stuff out. But, who knows, like when all that stuff's going to happen. It's just sort of out on the table right now. You're trying to gather all the pieces up and sort of decide where life's going to take you. But let's be real here. We can never dictate where life is going to take us. As much as we want to have control and we want to be able to, dictate our path. We know that things always go in a different direction. And so sometimes we just got to let it be and, sort of take it all in and learn lessons as we go.
To use the sports analogy, sometimes we get a curveball thrown our way.
That is very true. But I'll take one from Nick Saban, be where your feet are. Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, a lot of these coaches use that quote, be where your feet are. Yeah. And that's so important to me because I think we're so focused on the end game and where are we going to be when the clock hits zero, right?
Yep.
Well, we got to figure out what's happening in those 60 minutes in between. So what's going to help us to get there and have victory, right? And so I think that sometimes we just lose sight of that and feel like we got to hurry up and check that box and check that box and check that box and get to the end. But I think now's an opportunity to really kind of sit back and take in all that's around us and all the blessings and everything that we're sort of being given right now and realize that when all of this does pass, that new normal might look a little different, but hey, it might be a little bit better than what we were used to before.
Yeah. Be where your feet are.
Yep. Be where your feet are.
I like that.
Yes.
Well, hey, Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. And if folks want to learn more about you or get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so of course I've got all my social media accounts: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Lauren Sisler. You can hit me up in the DMs. Everybody always jokes with me. They're like, "How come you have your DMs open?" And I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Some of the best conversations come from that."
Yeah.
And so, I love connecting with people. So feel free to reach out, hit me up with some comments, whatever. You can also go check out my website at laurensisler.com. And of course, if you want to shoot me an email, you can reach out on the website as well. But that's got some of the some stories and just some various things on there that you can check out and sort of see what we're up to. But again, I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm still disappointed. I got the calendar. I didn't delete it out of my calendar, and it was only just because I wanted to be reminded of the big day coming up, that we were going to be coming to Narrows High School and Giles High School and spend some time with everyone. But you know what? We'll do it again. Like I said, we've only hit the pause button. We're going to hit resume here before too long. And so I just want to encourage everyone out there to stay safe and stay healthy, but be positive and be encouraged, because look, life's not over yet, guys. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this stronger, and we're going to be better people for it.
I think that says it beautifully. Lauren,
you.
Thanks again so much. Have a great day.
Too.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Dissect and Connect. For more information about Montgomery County Prevention Partners, our New River Valley Community Services, be sure to check us out on Facebook or visit nrvcs.org.